What do you want to put on the cover of a magazine, which is going to sell on the newsstand? And your eye goes from quadrant 1 to quadrant 2, then to the bottom. If you think about it, that's where all the words are, right? There's nothing in the center. So I always suggest don't underestimate the amount of white space. So you don't need to put buttons and dashes and call-outs all over the front of your packet.
Welcome to episode 49 of the Seed Farmer Podcast, the podcast where I want you to harvest seeds from some of the vegetables and flowers growing in your farm or garden, and then to plant that seed out to grow delicious vegetables and beautiful flowers. I'm your host, Dan Brisebois, seed grower at Turnersoil Cooperative Farm and author of The Seed Farmer, a complete guide to growing, using, and selling your own seeds. If you enjoy the Seed Farmer Podcast and find it as a good resource that helps you improve your seed work and farming, please support the show at spreadsheet.farm/supportpodcast. The link is also in the show notes. In today's conversation, we're going to open up some seed packs and see where they come from. So let's start with some news before we start the episode. Back in episode 27, I was talking with Chris Smith about cleaning okra seeds, and something that he said you could do if you have low germinating okra seeds is to water winnow the seeds to improve their germination. And I mentioned in that episode I had a few okra seed lots that weren't germinating as well as I wanted. And in December, I finally got around to water winnowing them. I put batches of okra seed into a mason jar and filled it up with water. And then I watched some of the seeds float to the top. I poured off the floaters, and then I maybe repeated this twice. I don't remember exactly. But then I poured the seed that was on the bottom into a colander, and I got it drying right away with some fans. I did this I had 3 lots, separate lots that I had kept, and I did it for all 3 lots, and the results were really impressive. So for my best lot, that had been at 67%. So that's best of these 3 lots, but not great, 67. After I water winnowed it, it was germinating at 93%. That is fantastic. I love that. That's exactly what the result I was looking for. And we've packed up that seed since then, and we're selling it on our online store. I also had a lot, this is the worst lot, was germinating at 4%. Now, 4% is horrible. This was late maturing seed that I had harvested off of a plant that I'd cut down and keeping mature in the greenhouse. So 4%. After water winnowing it, it brought it from 4% to 52%. So that's a dramatic increase. It is not good enough to sell, but 52% is definitely good enough for me to use on the farm, or for you to use on your farm if you had seed that at that rate, and you would just adjust your seeding rate. So I was really happy for that boost. If I have a bit of free time this winter, I might water winnow that lot again to see if I can bring it from 52 up to 80 or 90%. And if I do, I'll keep you posted. And if I don't, it means I just never got around to it. So that's okra. This is also the last week to sign up for Farm Spreadsheets for all seasons. This is my crop planning course with crop planning spreadsheet templates that you can use in your farm to plan out your year. You can also manage your harvest through these spreadsheets. If you're interested, head to spreadsheet.farm/join for more details, and you can also register if you're ready to get crop planning. Now, let's get into today's conversation. Chris Belnap is this episode's guest. Chris Belnap is the owner of Cambridge Pacific, based in Cambridge, New York. Their tagline is, "The folks who make the packets," and that's exactly what they do, printing seed packs for a wide range of seed companies. In this episode, Chris shares the history of Cambridge Pacific and walks us through how seed packs actually get printed. We dig into what you should think about when designing your own seed packs, and we explore the Packet Maker magazine. This is an annual publication that Cambridge Pacific publishes that documents Chris's travels to meet companies that use their packs. In the deep dive, we talk about dragons and how they have become a signature of Cambridge Pacific. Enjoy the conversation. Welcome, Chris, to the Seed Farmer Podcast.
Thank you.
I've been thinking about having you on for a little bit because, so you're Cambridge Pacific, or so our seed company, Turner Soil Cooperative Farm, gets our seed packs from you. And I know a lot of seed companies do. And it's something that, well, just before we had this conversation, started talking, you mentioned it's like Q-tips. People don't think about who makes the Q-tips, but somebody has to. And
Right.
I don't think people necessarily think about the seed pack until it's time to put your seeds in something and sell them. And so I thought this would be a great conversation for seed farmers to listen to.
Yep.
So usually when I start this conversation, I ask people, can you tell me your seed story? But for you, I'm going to ask, can you tell me your seed pack story? So, where it started and how it got to actually selling seed packs or printing seed packs, maybe more specifically.
Okay, I'll go back. I'm not sure where you want me to start, but I went to college for mathematics and computer science, worked in a bank for 3 years, went to graduate school, and said, well, I'll work on Wall Street. And I did. And I loved the work, but I hated the city. So I got involved with a commercial printing outfit in Glens Falls, New York. And at the time, we were living in Vermont, which we still do, my wife and I. And we said, well, this is where we want to raise our family, so we have to figure out how to carve a little niche out here. So I was in commercial printing, and I basically delivered a box of business cards to one of our customers, which was Bentley Seeds in Cambridge, New York. And I'm talking to Lance, and he said, well, the guy down the street is selling because they're in bankruptcy. And the guy down the street was Cambridge Pacific. So I went down and looked to them. I talked to their staff and, did due diligence and got involved in printing seed packets. And that's it. There's no seed. There was no master plan. It was just like, okay, this is an interesting business. And printing is pretty high capital intensive. And in effect, at that time, because you had a library of vegetables and images, you could sort of not guarantee, but be pretty good on having repeat work. Now, that platform has changed. So that's how I got into printing seed packets. And that was 1995. And from then on, it's just been sort of organic growth and organic shrinkage, as the case may be. So, when growing up, I had worked I had no seed, worked at a gas station. I was a caddy, painted, driveway sealing, all that silly little stuff that you do to put nickels in your pocket back before cell phone time. And so I was pretty mechanically inclined, so I could understand the machines. After graduate school, I got involved with, before commercial printing, I got involved with film developing. And that's where I learned all the technical aspects of color, your CMYKs, your red, green, blues, and all that kind of stuff. So because you used to take pictures on film, put it in an envelope, or take it to a drugstore and say, develop this for me. Well, that's where it came into my plant at night. We develop it overnight and have it back to you the next day. So that's why I learned the technical aspects. And so when I transitioned into commercial printing, which was for advertisers and big corporations, I was able to overlay those, the color theory, and make sure we were doing a good job. And subsequent, technology has just taken off. The actual printing of the packets is still the same. It's water and ink, and the two shall not meet. But there's a lot of technology which took off from there. So when I got involved with Cambridge Pacific, I moved all my commercial printing stuff over to Cambridge and just started growing from there. And we've had different press sizes, lots of die cut. It's just, every year you want to sort of think, well, this is the ninth inning. I'm not buying anything. And yet you turn around and you have to buy stuff. So that's sort of the short story of how I got into seed packets. When I was joined this industry, the people, from Renee Shepard to Lance Bentley they were just open arms. Charlie Hart, and there's a lot of companies which have gone with the byway, which were very open with me and said, "Here's what we need. Here's how you need to do this." And I've never really felt that I've had how do I say this, a corporate relationship with any of our customers. It's always sort of been, well, we want to trust you. We want you to part. Before people started using the word partner, that's how they were treating me. So it's been a blessing in this industry.
I do want to ask you a little bit about the process of the printing, but how long has Cambridge Pacific been around before you came in? Is there any moments of history you want to just speckle in there?
Well, some of this is we know and some of it's speculation. Okay, Lyman White worked for Asgrow Seed. And Cambridge used to be a hub of seed. The number of seed companies started here when, it was railroads and shipping by boat and all that kind of stuff. So when he retired, like no one does, he got another job. He started the seed packet business because he knew so much about it. And it was working out of a barn on a hill in Cambridge. And he sold to a company called Pacific Lithograph, which was out on the West Coast in San Francisco. And they were doing seed packets for the West Coast, and he was doing seed packets for the East Coast. And they sort of merged because Pacific Lithograph had some financial and some ecological problems, environmental problems. They sort of crossed the line some places. They went bankrupt, and so I bought them out of bankruptcy, but it was all located in Cambridge.
Okay.
So at that time, there was one die cutter, 6 converting machines, or 4 some really small amount of stuff. Now I don't even know how much we have. And that's how we got into it. And Lyman always had a great reputation. He knew seed. So that guy knew what he was talking about. And I think that's why a lot of customers trusted him. And we know packets, and we don't know anything about seed. So, except small seed, that's always problematic.
It definitely is a tricky thing to pack. So let's say you get the art or the design from your client. So let's say I place an order and I say we want these 100 seed packs and we want 2,000 or 3,000 of each of them, and we send you a PDF for that's been laid out by the specifications. What happens technically on your side for that?
And that's a good question, because there's ways to make that easy and ways to make it difficult. Normally what happens when you have a nice, well-saved PDF with all the colors and the UPCs and all the blacks and all the things separated, and it makes sense. We call that, that's a little print unit for us. Well, we gather all of those, and you may have 100, 150, or 75 items. We run them through a proprietary algorithm which creates press runs. So we don't run one packet at a time. We run 9 packets or 12 packets or 15 packets or 18 packets, whatever the case may be. So when we run it through that algorithm, the algorithm says, well, the highest cost is making a set of plates and paper. So we minimize those. We minimize the number of press runs and thereby the number of plates, and we minimize the number of sheets of paper to get what you ordered out. And we're a little bit different. Think of it this way. When Heinz or Campbell Soup orders, or Heinz orders ketchup labels, there's like 8 or 10 different ketchup labels, but they order 1 million of this one, and then 1 million of this one, and then 1 million of that one. So the press runs are easy, right? You're doing flowers, vegetables, and herbs. It ain't like that. It's 3 of this, 4 of this, 5 of this. So it's kind of complicated, and we sort of spend a lot of time both aligning the colors on the sheets and making sure the math works out well so it's the most cost effective to you. So you could give us a sheet and say, well, I'm going to order, suppose you say, I've got 30 items and I'm going to order 2,000 of 15 and 1,000 of these 15. Well, that's easy. but that's not our life. Our life is making sure when you order, you don't have excess inventory. So we do have this proprietary software which we've written, which goes through it and analyzes that and creates the best press runs. And it's fast, and we go. So we dump your order, which is in spreadsheet form, and we combine it with all your artwork, which is in PDF form. We merge the two, and we come up with composite press runs. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you like the spreadsheet is telling you what's going together and what quantities, and it's dictating the merge that's putting the PDFs together on. And what I'm imagining, and I might be wrong, what I'm imagining is that it's like a really big piece of paper with maybe different packs, not only one pack on it.
Yes. It can have, like I said, 9, 12, 15 is a big one. We usually do 15s. It has 15 different packs. It has the ability to do 15 different packs. But the most cost-effective way, let's say you order 1,000 each, but you ordered 5,000 of this one item. Well, I may run that one item 2 or 3 up on the same sheet.
So this is a big piece of paper then, with a lot of what dimension would you say it is? Just like ballpark, and I know there might be a few different dimensions.
It's 2 or 3 feet by 2 or 3 feet. That's a big sheet.
I don't know how deep I want to get into the machinery, but is the paper like on a roll, or is it cut sheets that are being fed through the machine?
That's a good question. Because of where we are and the sizes which we use cut sheet paper. You can use rolls, which are more cost effective unless you're changing paper a lot. So if I got to change from this paper, I got to unload a roll, reload a roll, and there's some waste there when you're doing rolls. When I first got into this business, we'd load a stack of 10,000 sheets in the feeder part of the paper, and it could take 1,000 to 1,500 sheets to get your color and registration correct. Now it's 50, 50. And that's the technology of printing, and you pay for
it. Definitely. You pay for everything.
Yeah. So we use cut sheet paper, but there are competitors of mine, or who do use roll paper, but they're sort of set up differently. You gotta feed that beast a little bit different than you feed us. We may run 5 runs on a white coated one side paper, and then 10 runs on a milkweed colored paper, and then on a speckly gray paper, and so we're all over the map. And the way you don't want to really be in rolls doing that, you just want to be in cut sheets.
Yeah. So you have these large sheets with multiple packs, some which may be the same, many of them are different. Is that being printed in the same machine that's then cutting it? Or is that like 2 steps?
Yeah, it's 2 steps now. I never know what the future is. You don't want to be the last guy making buggy whips, so you're always saying, okay, how can I improve my process? So when you take those sheets, basically think of it as a checkerboard, and we take it to a guillotine cutter, and we cut out every square.
And that's being done, it's automated, I'm guessing.
Well, you take a stack of 4 or 5 inches of paper, you put it in the cutter, and you have to spin it and make cuts. So it goes really fast, but it's driven by air, but there is manual labor. And then this is key for us, because we're not cutting the same image out of the paper. We could have 15 different images, correct?
Right.
We have to sort those after we cut them into squares.
So is each stack one image?
Yeah. That's the goal after cutting.
Okay.
So I'm going to cut, a stack of, 4-foot high stack of press sheets. I'm going to cut that into 15 4-foot high packet squares.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So now we have little codes on the side. It's very visual, so we don't have mixes. But you can see, you could play 52 pickup pretty easily there if something goes south.
From looking at the packs, I have seen I see the colors on the side. Like when we open a box, I can see the colors. So that's the visual indicator that you're working with.
Right. So now that we have them in squares, It's like a cookie cutter. You turn it on its side, and we hydraulically punch the packet squares through the cookie cutter, and that's how you get the packet shape.
Okay. Okay.
And that's a fast process, but it's a manual process. You kind of got to watch everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're off a 64th of an inch on your first cut, by the time you make your ninth cut, well, you could be off 4/64ths, and that's going to be a problem when you go to die cut. So you got to measure and visualize, and it sounds simple, and it is, but there's a lot to go on. And paper cuts differently in July than it does in November.
Oh, so weather doesn't only affect farmers.
No, no.
So you've cut them into an envelope shape. Is that what you were saying? Like the unfolded envelope shape?
Right.
And then are you feeding it, as at that point, are you feeding it through a machine that then folds the envelope, or is there another step before then?
No, that's it. We go right to converting machines. So we go from press sheets to what we call packet squares to die cut shapes. And the die cut shapes, we have them on carts. And because we separate them by variety, every cart holds a different variety, or every column has a different variety. There's just a way to visually look at it and see what it is based on our workflow. So now we go to the converting machines, which make the folds. They fold the packet in half, they fold the side flap over, they fold the end flap over, and that's it. That's automated, that's fast, but there's a lot more you can do. And this is where it gets really tricky, because you have to we have little go, no-go marks, these esoteric little marks and these little blue chinks here and there on the packet, which you can see if the packet is square, whether it's crooked, are you scoring through the paper? There's a lot which can go south. And then you add on the different sealing varieties. Do you want heat seal? Do you want latex? Do you want no seal? Do you want two-sided tape? So there's a lot goes on during that process. But that goes 200 or 300 a minute. So if you're not looking, 5 minutes, you're rocking out to Led Zeppelin. All of a sudden, you got 5 boxes of junk.
And nobody's happy about that.
Yeah, we don't let them play Led Zeppelin.
I know it's a little bit more complicated, as you said, like getting however it's going to be sealed on. But at the end, when you have your folded envelopes, what happens from there to getting into those cardboard boxes that you'll ship in?
So it goes right from the converting machine to the cardboard box, because the glue we have to use is almost, it's like an Elmer's glue. And by definition, it has to stay open. It can't dry immediately, or else it would dry in the machine. So the pressure in the box of the envelopes from front to back helps seal the glue, helps get you the good fiber tear. So it goes right into the box, and we turn them every 100 or every 200. Maybe we put chipboard in there. It just depends on the paper. And we want to deliver a packet which doesn't have curl. Sometimes we put chipboard. Sometimes we have to, smaller boxes, and it is what it is.
And we appreciate that when we take them out and they're looking nice and crisp, and then like that, it makes everything easier. And I notice I don't know if it's all of them or most of them, there's like a little paper square in there, maybe with a couple initials. Is that just whoever packed it up? It's like a last quality control?
Yeah, we want, and it's hard to do from a number of different levels, but you're at the 5,000-foot level when you're managing all this. You want to connect the person running that machine with the customer as many ways as you can. So we have everyone put on the box their initials. Then we have a QC person who checks every 1 out of 10 boxes. And they look at it visually. They look for latex. They look for glue leaks. They look for accordions of packets and things like that. And so every box is going to have a white sticker, and every 10th box may have a blue sticker. Blue sticker being the QC person. So it shows pride, but it's sort of, for us, by the time it gets in your hands and it's gone south, it's too late.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, we can make you packets, but we get it up, we print them, we cut them, we ship them. 5, 7, or 8 days in the future. It's even though we can move fast, it's so we try and make it right the first time.
Definitely. That saves a lot of headaches for everybody.
Yeah.
Especially if folks are like in peak packing season and they want to get something off the machine. They want to pack something out and ship it to wherever it's going. It's not a totally hypothetical. There's definitely been times where we realized we were low on something and didn't see it coming. I mean, that's maybe our fault to not have ordered in time, but we really appreciate it when we can get something and it's good and we can just send it out. And I can understand that you probably have a lot of stress at times from different clients.
Well, I don't, but the people. Yeah, I've got a really good team here, and the first question we try and ask is, "What are your priorities?"
Mm-hmm.
Because you may be ordering 120 packets, but you may need 5.
Yeah.
Well, those 5 I'll get to you next week, and the other 120 I'll get to you within 4 weeks, and we're both happy. So that's kind of the way we're set up. So to the extent that we can know that kind of information, it really helps. It's square one. After I printed everything, it's sort of a nightmare to go sort through it and say, I just need to squash.
Yeah. Yeah. How big is your team?
We have a little over 50 people on a daily basis, and that quantity goes up and down on the seasonality.
How is it divided between I don't know if it's like office and like floor, or is there what, how would you break it out?
So let me sort of say human resources and bookkeeping is probably 2 people. Graphics, customer service. We have a remote person. We have 4 people who show up every day. And I'm sure you've talked to Michelle. She runs that crew. And, those are all above my pay grade because technology is just flying along. And we do. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have probably 4 or 5 people for graphics, and those are all every day. Then in the press room, it's sort of funny. And those folks make the plates. In the press room, I used to have 3 presses, 4 presses. Well, now I have 2. The old presses ran at 5,000 sheets an hour. The new ones run at 18,000 sheets.
Wow.
So we have basically 2.5 pressmen. We've got 4 or 5 or 6 cutters, depending upon. We have a lot of cross training going on. So there's 25 or 30, and then we have 20, 25 converting people. So it's like every press sheet has 15 packets on it. It's got to go somewhere, and that's where we have the converting. So we have a lot of converting machines which do a lot of different stuff. And the way we run our converting machines is, if they're for sale, I buy them. I've got a great team of mechanics. They're all retired. It's like they retire and they come back to work. And we rebuild the machines, we redo all the electrical, and we bring them into service. And I do that because even though they're very flexible machines, I want to have a machine which is always running this size packet. So I always running N7s. I always want to run N8s. And if I don't run those, I throw tarp over it that day. Okay, our 2B packets, we got a gazillion machines which run those because those are always, that's the normal size packet, 3 1/4, 4 1/2. So we're always running those. So it's probably half the team is converting, and the other half is either getting it ready, shipping it, or getting it out, doing the graphics work and all the technological stuff.
Now, I know at one point there was something that happened. I don't remember what it was. It had to do with, there was I don't know if it was during COVID or something, just when there was a lot of confusion going on that everybody had to deal with. And I was talking with somebody, I don't know if it was Michelle or maybe Shelley. I was talking to somebody at Cambridge Pacific, and she mentioned, well, I'll bring it up at the Monday meeting. And it gave me the impression that you kind of have a big, I don't know if it's a weekly or a daily, but big all hands on deck kind of meeting to kind of figure out what's going on and troubleshoot problem stuff. Am I imagining this right?
Yeah, that's exact. We do it every day at 8:30. We get the the shipping and the operators and the quality people, everyone from the floor, we come up and we meet at 8:30 every morning. And I wrote down a list because I never remember, but we go over what's in graphics, what is stalled, what's going to be plated. Because if it's not plated, you can't print it. If you can't print, it doesn't go anywhere else. Then we go over the press schedule. Then we go over the cutting schedule and converting. And specific to converting would be changeovers, because sometimes you gotta run 500 of this 6x9, and then you got to go back to a 4x6, and that can get a little tricky. And then shipping, and then we have what we call lesson reports. And the lesson reports are, we try and keep track of everything we screw up, and so we can learn from it. And so we do that every morning. But if someone like you calls 1 o'clock on a Tuesday and said, "Hey, I really need these fast," we don't want to make a commitment we can't keep.
Right.
So we usually say, "All right, we'll bring it up at the 8:30 meeting. We see what we can juggle, and then get it going through there."
Mm-hmm. That's. I mean, I like visualizing that, and I think it's great to have that kind of coordination. I mean, we have something similar on our farm too.
Yeah.
So, but it's great when people who don't necessarily speak to each other at every moment of the day have a moment to connect and exchange, because there can be something related to graphics as a big impact elsewhere, or it's just really nice to have a place for people to connect across departments or outside of their specialty.
Yeah, we call it silos. You don't want to be in a silo, because then it's just going to run past you, and you'll never get to touch it, see it, or understand it. So we have to, it's a continual process. I'm in charge of cutting. Well, I got to understand what's coming from the press room, because I got to cut it. So we try and keep those lines of communication open. And look, I'm blessed with a really good team.
That makes all the difference.
These guys are, it's not for, they work for the customers. That's what I want. I want them working for the customers.
So let's say somebody listens to this podcast and they're starting a small seed company, and they're like, "Oh wow, I never thought about making the packs," and they want to order their first run of packs. And I mean, I guess there are other printers out there too, but just in general, what are the questions somebody should ask? What should they do when they want to start getting packs printed for them?
Well, there's a couple of ways to look at this, and I always sort of try and start with, well, how are you going to sell them? What channel are you going to sell through? What does the packet have to survive before it gets in the customer's hands?
And you mean, like, if you're going to be putting it, are you shipping it directly in an envelope, like a mail order, or you have it on a seed rack, or?
Yeah, if you're mail order, you're controlling that packet till it gets to the customer. If you're into seed rack sales, as soon as you ship that rack, you've lost all control. So that sort of says to me how you're going to seal the envelope, right? If you're hand filling, okay, do you really want to use latex because someone can open it up and steal it, or that latex may bake away in the sun and pop open? So there's a lot of, I try and look, we try and look at the technical aspects first before we even ask. So we would hopefully, in collaboration with you, tell you what we would suggest. Okay. Now, this is even before we get into your artwork and your paper or anything like that. It's just sort of like, how are you selling these, and what does the packet have to survive?
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Okay. The next step is, okay, personally speaking for myself, marketing, what I know about marketing fits in a thimble. So I can't help you there. We have some general thoughts on artwork. Artwork will determine probably the paper you want to print on. Some watercolor artwork may look better on uncoated paper. It sort of soaks in. Photographic may look better on a coated one-side sheet because it's going to mostly closely represent a photographic paper. So your artwork will tell a lot about what you're going to do, and then you want to say, well, what message is your packet really doing? If it's mail order, do you really want to invest in having 4-color images? Because it's wonderful when you open the box, but maybe all they care about is it says tomato and here's how to grow it.
The pack is not selling itself because they've already ordered it online. Whereas if
you already ordered it,
you sit into a store and it doesn't look nice, you look to the next seed company.
Right. You don't want to read the front of a packet in black type on a white envelope in a store. No, Charlie Hart told me this once. He said, look, you're selling dreams. That's what we're doing. We're selling dreams. I got to have a dream for the front of this packet, Chris. And your sunflower looks like a squirrel ate it. So get a better sunflower picture.
Yeah.
So it all depends on how you're selling it and what you want to do. And then you can go from there. There's just some really creative people out in that world, right? And you've never seen everything.
So once you've kind of decided, you figured out, I guess, the specifications of it and size and that kind of thing, what are some easy mistakes for folks to make when they're designing their pack? And I don't mean it in terms of like the layout and stuff, but more like to make sure it works well for you when your graphic team is going to take it and turn it into the file.
Well, it's a two-edged question. The technical aspects, we have templates and they're pretty straightforward. If you can read, you can figure it out. Okay. The second part is we've been doing this for 30 years. What would we suggest you don't do? So I use the NASCAR analogy, which is look, and we were also in publishing. We owned some magazines at one time. And it's sort of like, what do you want to put on the cover of a magazine, which is going to sell on the newsstand? And your eye goes from quadrant 1 to quadrant 2, then to the bottom. If you think about it, that's where all the words are, right? There's nothing in the center. So I always suggest, don't underestimate the amount of white space. So you don't need to put buttons and dashes and call outs all over the front of your packet. And unless your name is, I don't know if I'm allowed to say, unless your name is Burpee, you probably don't have, a big following, right? So should your name really be at the top if you're putting it in a rack? Probably want the variety at the top and the price and the weight and the fill weights and all that kind of stuff. And your name should maybe go along the bottom because that's, what do you want them to see? You want them to see the variety picture and then the type, easy, fast, and it wants to look beautiful. Don't make your racks too deep because as soon as you take 5 packets on, everything's in shadow. It's just all that silly little stuff, which is sort of marketing driven. And the information on the back should be well thought out and well written and, current of how you pay attention to zones and times and things like that. So that's kind of where we go. But, with ChatGPT and all these other stuff, things are getting a lot faster, easier. That information is flowing a lot better. So the two aspects are the technical and then the marketing/presentation, and that's sort of up to you. But you don't want to have scripty things because it takes too hard to read.
Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense. And so far as you're going through the stuff, I'm like, yeah, that's what our packs kind of look like, and I think that's the kind of logic we have behind it. We're not doing a mistake. We're not doing it wrong that way. So, all
right.
Yeah, that works. And then, in our case, we started off with, we had, 200-300 varieties. Then we just decided to look at our top 60 bestsellers and just decided to get those into packs with pictures on them first. And it gave us a chance to see if we like it, gave us a chance to try a relationship, and then we saw right away that once we had that, it meant like you got 1/4 of your display if you have everything looks really slick, and the rest didn't look as slick. And it was pretty quick that we did the next year, but it was nice to have that trial period on our part.
When you're working on displays, you got to be very careful. So you pick out an elegant paper, you charge another $1 per packet. That might be the only packets that sell. You say,
yeah,
that's not what I wanted. You know?
If you're already a seed farmer, or even just thinking about harvesting seed from your plants for the first time, head over to seedgrowers.farm for my free seed grower resources. There is cross-pollination information, seed yield information, even a few seed spreadsheets. There's also a list of my favorite seed books and podcasts. While you're there, you can also sign up for my weekly newsletter to get seed grower tips and stories straight into your inbox. So head to seedgrowers.farm for my seed grower resources. Now, back to the show. One of the things every year that we receive from Cambridge Pacific is a packet maker magazine and kind of a summary of the year and travels you've done to different seed companies and other things going on in your life and the business life. You want to tell us a little bit about this publication?
Well, it's probably 10, maybe 12 years old. We used to call it the thank you book, where we would just say, I went to Susie's house. Susie had me for dinner, and I said thank you. And then I went to Billy's house, and we have a lot of big and small customers. But as I got traveling more and more, there were so many interesting people and interesting avenues. We just sort of exploded that on a yearly basis. So every time I go on the road, I try and take pictures of the people and the places I've been. And then I try and, one or two or three instances, delve a little bit into the history. So I call it the Packet Maker book, but it's really our people and our places and our history. Where places might be where you're located, or it might be places I drove through. Because I try and peel off a little bit of time either to fish or hike somewhere.
Maybe go to A&W?
And go to A&W. So I started writing that. And Don, our artist, pulls images out of my writing or takes pictures, which I've taken, and he makes, pen and ink drawings. And we put them together, and people seem to really enjoy it. So it's our way of sort of basically saying thank you. It also pulls you and other customers into my plant. And so people here read the magazine and see, oh, okay, this person isn't crazy. They don't have, 4 eyes and a knife, and it gets back to that Velcro connection I want to create between the person on my floor and your filling area, right? So
I never thought about it that way. I've always so I run a seed farmer podcast. You're on it right now. And I like to connect different seed growers together. And in some ways I was seeing, to me, when I read the Packet Maker, I see all these different seed companies. They're not all growers, but there's something, it's like a networking thing a little bit for me too. I'm not, I'm seeing them. I'm not talking to them.
Yeah.
But it's really fun. And I see, there's a lot of differences, but there's also a lot of similarities. But I never thought about how this is also a way for you to give a face, your clients, your customers' face to your team, and to draw those relationships together. That's really great. It's because at a farmer's market, when we're selling vegetables, we see our people, With a seed company, it's already harder. I already find it's harder when I'm doing mail order, or especially if it's on a seed rack. You can't connect the same way. And I can imagine that seed pack, it's like another step removed.
Yeah. So that we really enjoy. I personally enjoy it, and I've heard mostly good things from customers. Some people don't like the way their picture shows up. I have some Amish customers, and I walked into one a year after I sent the book, and he said, "Look, his neighbor, which is all he's like 20 miles away. He was also in the book. He said, my neighbor's picture was larger." What do you mean? He goes, "His picture was bigger than mine last year." Okay, and I try and stay away from confidential or esoteric information in the book, and just say, these guys are carving out something really kind of neat. But he was worried about the picture size. I said, okay, I'll keep that in mind.
So you visited a lot of these seed companies that are ordering from you. How have those exchanges changed the way that you're making packs or something that you're doing in the business?
It gives us an ability to mold ourselves to that particular customer. And I'll give you an example. I've got a customer which they order 500 packets of 12 items. That's what they want. They don't want 600. They don't want 480. They need to have 500. The reason is because those 12 items are all going together in a kit. So when I sell them 480, they're 20 kits short, and then they have 120 packets left over from the overages. Okay, well that's easy stuff which we can then codify and understand what that customer is doing. Sometimes it's pretty simple, but sometimes you just go understand it, and people like to be seen. The world is moving to you're not buying from people anymore. You're buying from a computer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in our business, we think there's an opportunity to buy from people. And my staff has been here a while, so they've been through growing seasons and COVID seasons, and they can have a good 5 or 10 years under our belt. So there's a good continuity. So that's kind of why I like to go see it. And look, I like to go fishing too. I got to fish in Utah this year. So
Those sound like fantastic trips.
yeah.
So now I have the biggest questions that I'm sure everybody who orders packs from you have been wondering about, and it's about the dragons.
Yeah.
So there are, over the years that we've been ordering from you, there have been a proliferation of dragons throughout, origami dragons that we've received by mail. I think dragon tier maple syrup. And I'm looking at a logo of yours that says I ride dragons underneath. And now I love dragons. There's no problem with that, but I'm really curious, where did the dragons come from?
Okay. I wish it was a great, sexy story, but it's not. We built a 5,000 square foot addition next to her. We're in an old chicken coop. So our chicken coop is 40 feet wide by like 400 or 500 feet long. Terribly inexpensive and terribly inefficient. But it is where we are and it is what we own. So it used to be an industrial chicken coop in Cambridge. And we built an addition. Well, you can't build an addition to it. You have to build a building next to it and join it with a corridor. So we did that. And the math was such that the building cost $10 to put up, but the corridor cost $5. And I said, why does the corridor cost so much money? Had to be all concrete. It's because it's a fire corridor. It's a fire break. Had to have fire doors on it. Just a lot of stuff for something which was 20 feet long. So I got on the internet and I said, well, I'm going to put something on these concrete walls. And I found a place which had murals. You could get them custom made. So I got a couple of dragons and I put them up and they were great. People liked them.
Just kind of along the side in that little tunnel.
So they're a good 10 feet wide, 8 feet tall, couple of dragon things. People liked them, so they said, get some more, put one by my machine. And so we got more and we put them around. And then, the graphics team, which we talked about before, sort of said, well, our logo used to be like a cornucopia of vegetables and flowers. And so we just put a dragon on there. And it kind of grew from that over the years. And that's the only connection. But there's a lot of weird people in my customer base that love dragons. And so I would get notes about, hey, I want one of each of your pens. I said, what do you mean? And so I'd have one of each of my pens. And so that's where it came from. So I think the dragons are here to stay for a little bit. It's not a sexy story, but we use it. It has no connection to seed packets, but you're right. It's the first question everyone asks me. And I'm thinking, do you want the long story or the short story?
I think it's a good story, and it does sound like those dragons just want to be everywhere. So they're just going where they want to go.
Well, you get on the internet and type in dragon paraphernalia, you can find a whole bunch of cool stuff. And like you said, we like to mail it out. We really don't have a marketing or a sales team here. So we spend a lot of money on our package. So when you open the packet maker package and the calendars, you hopefully get a sense of who we are and why we do things the way we are. And when you talk to the Michelles or Tracy's or Crystals, you understand where we're coming from. So it's kind of our marketing deal for the year.
Well, it's a lot of fun when we receive it, and I think it's really great. It's a nice care package.
Yeah.
So, is there something I should have asked you that I haven't asked you?
We covered everything that you sent me, so I think that's pretty good. But it's, we're really blessed. Both our customer base, there's some continuity to it. Sort of the industry we are in is an industry which isn't threatened by environmental factors. In fact, we're the exact opposite, right? It's not like we're trying to take plastic out of seeds. So it's a pretty rewarding industry for us to just meet the people and package the seeds and service them. So this has been fun. We're at almost an hour. I didn't think we'd get to 30 minutes. So,
well, and I'm sure I could ask more questions, but I do want to respect your time, and I really appreciate the time that you've taken. Maybe the last question I would ask you is, when you go to a nursery or a hardware store and you see a seed rack that your company is printing those packs. What do you feel when you see that?
So when I see it like a Home Depot or a Lowe's or a Walmart, I just feel lucky for that year because you never know what's going to happen, right?
Right.
But when I see some of the smaller companies up in, and I'm up in northern Vermont and I see a small company from, Massachusetts in there or a small company from Connecticut, that's pretty neat. I really enjoy that. And my kids, which are, New York and Philadelphia, they always take pictures of seeds and say, do you sell these packets? I said, yeah, we do some of them, So it's nice to see your product out and about. But it's all built on the industry, which is it's an industry which you're sort of proud to be a part of.
Yeah, I can see that. So if folks want to find out more about Cambridge Pacific, where should they go?
The website's kind of an okay start, but the best place is to call and talk to one of the folks here, Michelle or Tracy, Crystal, because they've seen it all and they know it all and they know what, it saves a lot of upfront, saves a lot of frustration if you get through the why and what you want the packet to survive and what message do you want the packet to say. Once you define that stuff, we can sort of give you, look, here's what we think you should do, and and here's what you might want to think of.
That sounds great. So there'll be a link to the website in the show notes, and folks can click on that, get the phone number, and give a call if they're interested.
Perfect. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Chris, for taking the time for this conversation, and also for being part of the seed packs that we deal with every day.
Yep, it's our pleasure, and thank you for having me.
Have a fantastic season, or end of season.
Yeah, all right, take care.
And that's episode 49 of the Seed Farmer Podcast. Thank you, Chris, for being on the podcast, and thanks for printing the seed packs that we put our seeds into to ship across Canada. If you wind up contacting Cambridge Pacific after listening to this episode, make sure to tell them that you heard about them on the Seed Farmer Podcast. Thank you to Sophia Sedelton for the theme music. You can hear more of their music at sophiasedelton.com. Thank you to Molly Breezebor for editing this episode. And thank you so much for joining me in these conversations with seed farmers and people who support seed farmers. You can find more seed growing resources on my blog at seedgrowers.farm. While you're there, you can subscribe to my newsletter full of seed growing, crop planning, and farm spreadsheets. You can also find out where to order a copy of my book, The Seed Farmer, a complete guide to growing, using, and selling your own seed. And you can support the podcast at spreadsheet.farm/support podcast, or follow the link in the show notes. If you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, now's the time. You wouldn't want to miss the next episode. Until then, happy farming.